بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope everybody is doing well today. Again, sorry for the slight delay. SubhanAllah, you know, it can't be a lecture without us running into trouble to start, right? You know, so as you can see, I'm speaking right now without a microphone. So I told them to go and I don't know, it's missing apparently. So we'll deal with that for now until they figure out where the mic is, and then inshallah we'll take it as we go, inshallah. So why don't we jump right into it? You guys can all hear me though, right? Alhamdulillah. Okay, alhamdulillah. So what is the primary benefit of learning about the 99 names of Allah Azza wa Jal? Or just, yeah, entering Jannah. Very good, right? So we mentioned in the hadith, the authentic hadith, whoever learns about the 99 names of Allah, their reward is Jannah. And of course, we explained what is learning about the names, right? It doesn't just only mean to memorize them. It means to memorize them, it means to understand them, it means to apply them, to use them, to call to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على So, as I was saying, learning about the 99 names of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the reward is Jannah. And of course, we had discussed previously, you grow closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allahu Akbar, we found it. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Okay. Sorry, another interruption. We will be back momentarily. Put this guy here. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Let's try this out. Works? Works? Yeah, it works. Okay. Works a little too well. Okay, so learning about the 99 names of Allah Azza wa Jal, the reward is entering Jannah. And previously we spoke about, the fact that you get to know Allah Azza wa Jal more, you grow closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. What is the difference between Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim? Yes? Very good, very good. So we mentioned Ar-Rahman is Allah Azza wa Jal's mercy, his great mercy. He is abundantly merciful. He has a lot of mercy. Ar-Rahim, now we are speaking about the mercy with his actions towards his creations, whether, of course, they are human or non-human, right? Animals, humans, insects, and everything, right? This is the rahmah of Allah towards all of his creation. This is the answer up here. Give two examples of deeds which expiate minor sins when they are done correctly. This is from the hadith of last week. Anyone from the girls want to give that a try? Yeah. Fasting, right? Fasting the month of Ramadan, praying, right? The obligatory prayers we mentioned. So, but the catch here is that you need to do them correctly, right? So that comes also with knowing the fiqh, knowing the rulings, and having the khushu', having the focus. So you could do the prayer correctly with all of its steps as well, but if you're not focused in it, then this is not you're not really getting the benefit of the prayer here. So if a person applies all of the arkan and the wajibat and the sunan of prayer, the same thing for fasting and all of these deeds, this causes them to expiate all of the minor sins between them. We also mentioned in the hadith from the Jum'ah to the Jum'ah, right? And we mentioned also there's the etiquettes of the Jum'ah, not speaking, not distracting yourself, listening to the khatib, right? A person who does that correctly, and there's many other things, Umrah as well, Hajj, and we mentioned also the general ruling, إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ, is in the Quran. Any kind of good deeds, it erase bad deeds as long as they are minor sins and they are not major sins. So speaking of major sins, how can someone make up for a major sin if they fell into one? Yes, Adam? Very good. So major sins, now, it's honestly very tricky. It's very tricky to get a person out of the zone of a major sin. And honestly, it even depends on the sin itself and what the person has done. Either way, a person has to, of course, feel guilty. They have to feel regretful. They have to understand the severity of what they have done and how big the sin it is. They can't just brush it off. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Allah Ghafur Rahim. It doesn't work that way. No, someone has to feel the weight of the sin and then have to repent sincerely back to Allah Azza wa Jal. Promise Allah Azza wa Jal that they will never ever return to that sin again, and do something to show it. So perhaps a person will now add a new good deed in their life that perhaps they haven't been doing before, and they're going to keep doing it consistently. Maybe they're going to promise Allah, you know what, for just because of this major sin, just so that Allah, you can forgive me, for every day in my life, I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna give $10 in sadaqah for every day in my life. And this is kind of a way of a person showing Allah Azza wa Jalla that they're serious about this tawbah. Now, of course, it gets even more complicated if this major sin has to do with someone else. So, for example, someone murdered another person, okay? Murdered someone unjustly without having the rights to do so. Now it gets even more complicated because we mentioned also in the hadith, right, last week, that when it gets to the matters between you and someone else, it's not as simple as just saying astaghfirullah, right, and just making tawbah to Allah. You have to now settle it with that person. So now you can imagine when there's a major sin involved, it's much more complicated to settle that with that other person, right? There's a whole network of rules that we find in the Quran when it comes to these kind of things, which are, of course, we're not going to go about now. But moral of the story: don't you ever fall into a major sin. What is special about saying Ameen with the Imam in the prayer at the same time? Yes? The angels are saying Ameen at the same time, and if I say Ameen at the same time as the angels, then, yes, my sins get forgiven. Very good. If I say Ameen at the same time as the Imam, I say it at the same time as the angels, and therefore my sins get forgiven. So, and once again, a reminder that when the Imam says وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, this is not a choir now, okay? And we find all the, I don't know what happens with ladies' side, but I know for the men's side, mashallah, everybody goes Ameen. Like, bro, what are you doing? Okay, you're the Sunnah. Just say Ameen. Okay, Ameen, and you wait for the Imam to say it, and you say it with the Imam. Now, if the Imam doesn't say it, you say it by yourself. That's fine. But you try to catch it with the Imam, and you don't try to stretch it out or wait till everybody's finished saying Ameen, and then I say Ameen. Just I'm trying to be cheeky and funny, or stretch it out extra long so that I have the longest Ameen out of the whole crowd. Okay, now this is just making playing around in the Salah. This is not acceptable. A person recited Surah Al-Fatiha in the prayer and then he made ruku' and he forgot to recite another surah. Is his prayer valid? Why or why not? Yes? Very good. So we mentioned last week that reciting something else besides Surah Al-Fatiha after you, so Surah Al-Fatiha is a rukun, you have to do it. After you finish Surah Al-Fatiha, then it is a sunnah to recite something. So if someone forgets and just makes ruku', then this is not a problem. Similarly, someone asked last week, what if I recite something after Surah Al-Fatiha in the third or fourth rak'ah, accidentally, I wasn't paying attention. Again, it's fine. It doesn't break your salah. So, and similarly, if someone makes a mistake and they're reciting the second surah, right? They finish Surah Al-Fatiha and they're reciting something else and then they make a mistake in the salah. Again, this does not invalidate or affect the salah at all because in the first place, this is a sunnah that they are messing up in. What miracle did Ma'bad witness while Prophet Muhammad was performing his hijrah? Yes, in the front. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the miracle, basically, to sum it all up, Ma'bad, she owned a very old goat that stopped giving milk a long time ago. And subhanAllah, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he asked for permission, of course. He went to this goat, he made some dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, and the goat produced a lot of milk that fed everybody and even left them with leftovers, right? So that the family can drink after. How did the Muslims of Yathrib react upon hearing that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had just arrived? Yes, yes, safe. يعني obviously okay بس يعني want to elaborate a little bit more on that. He's in the back. Yeah. الله وسلم. Jazakallah khairan. MashaAllah. Very good. So yes, the obvious answer is that they're happy and excited. Like that's a given. So, but as our friend mentioned, there were some extra details that took place along. So large groups of men came to greet him. There were women and children who were excited to see, oh, what's going on? Who is this person, right? And of course, they mistook Prophet Muhammad for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, right? So they went to Abu Bakr thinking that he's the prophet, and then later Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, using his wisdom, he put his cover on Prophet Muhammad to shade him from the sun, and they recognized that this was in fact Prophet Muhammad. Any questions about any of the stuff from last week before we just continue? Okay, so we'll probably just wrap up this unit of Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat with this final piece over here, and that is, just we've kind of highlighted them in a high level as we were going. What are some of the benefits of believing in Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat? So we've spoken about Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, and now Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat. And we mentioned previously, this is the primary way to know Allah Azza wa Jal. So, we mentioned, for example, in the unit when we were talking about worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, we mentioned that of the pillars of worshipping Allah is you worship Allah out of love and out of humility. You need love and you need humility in order to have worship towards Allah Azza wa Jal. Well, how can you possibly have love or humility when you don't even know the God that you are worshipping? So Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat, when you get to know that Allah has all of these names and has all of these attributes, Allah is the magnificent, Allah is the powerful, Allah is the merciful, Allah is the generous, and Allah is all of these different things. Now you get to start to get at least a little bit of a feel. Who is Allah Azza wa Jal? Who is this God that I am worshipping every day of my life, 5 prayers a day, right? So when you have this connection with Allah Azza wa Jal, then naturally you will be able to worship Him and become closer to Him. And obviously, by reflecting through some of the names, you get to learn about different aspects of Allah Azza wa Jal. So, for example, when you reflect about Allah's names, which talk about His mercy, His love, His compassion, right, all of these things, then that naturally grows our love towards Allah Azza wa Jal, right? when we learn that Allah is Ar-Rahim, Allah is Ar-Rahman, Allah is Al-Wadud, Allah is Al-Latif, Allah is, all of these, Al-Halim, all of these merciful attributes, this makes us more loving. This grows our love towards Allah Azza wa Jal. Similarly, when you reflect upon Allah Azza wa Jal's Qudra, Allah is Al-Qadir, He's capable of doing everything. Allah is Al-Aziz, He is the highest, the most honorable. When Allah is Al-Qawi, Allah is the most powerful. Then you start to humble yourself before Allah Azza wa Jal. Because you're like, if this is a God that can do anything, then I don't want to get on the bad side of this God, right? So this will grow a person's humility towards Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is a conclusion that we only came up by studying just a few names. Now imagine someone who has dived in and they've read all of the 99 names and they've studied them all one by one, they reflected upon them, they applied them in their lives. You can try and imagine what kind of connection that this person will have with Allah Azza wa Jal, how much love they will have, how much humility and awe, how much they will venerate Allah Azza wa Jal. So literally that person, their entire life, every step, every second in their life, they are doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Now on the other hand, and this is now going into the danger zone, showing no interest in knowing the names of Allah Azza wa Jal is now a sign of danger. Why is this a sign of danger? Very simple. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran that every person can only have one heart. Now what does that mean? Allah Azza wa Jal is not talking about the physical heart here. Every person only has one heart, meaning every person has one thing that their heart will attach to. If it's not to Allah Azza wa Jal, then know that your heart is attached to something else that is in this world. Perhaps your heart is attached to video games. Perhaps your heart is attached to your friends. Perhaps your heart is attached to money. Perhaps your heart is attached to your own self. You love your own self, right? So if a person is not attached to Allah Azza wa Jal, then this is now an indication that this person has some sort of attachment to the dunya and that they need to change something in their life. That's a sign. They need to change something in their life, maybe add some good deeds. They need to study. They need to do a checkup of their life to see what is going wrong and how can I attach myself to Allah Azza wa Jal. Of the benefits of studying the names, al-asma and al-sifat of Allah Azza wa Jal is increased faith and steadfastness in Allah Azza wa Jal. And the general rule is, by the way, but this is about anything in Islam. Whenever a person expresses his interest in Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah Azza wa Jal expresses His interest in that person. And we have so many hadith in this regard. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tells us in a hadith that Allah Azza wa Jal says that whoever comes to me closer a palm's length, I shall come to him closer an arm's length. Whoever comes to me closer an arm's length, I shall come to him this much closer. And whoever comes to me walking, I shall come to him running. Meaning Allah wants to come closer to you. Even though you might think yourself, I'm going closer to Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah is growing closer to you than you are going closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And what better way to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal than by studying who is Allah in the first place. Studying al-asma'ul husna, studying the most perfect names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal. And as a result of this, of course, it's a given that you get hasanat and you get ajr and you get closer, you increase in ranks and whatnot. But of the rewards as well, and this is found in the Quran, by the way, of the rewards of doing a good deed is Allah increases him in good deeds. One of the rewards of doing a good deed, one of the many rewards of doing a good deed, is Allah actually increases you even more in doing good deeds. And Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Muhammad, وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُمْ. As for the people who are guided, who follow the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal, He shall increase them in guidance. And by the way, as a side note, the opposite is also true. One of the punishments, and we need to be careful of this, one of the punishments of a person who is sinful and who is disobeying Allah Azza wa Jal is Allah increasing them in disobedience. And Allah increasing them in that sin. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions this in the Quran a lot of times. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا. They have a diseased heart. They have a heart that's not connected to Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah increases them in their disease because they don't want to be in Allah Azza wa Jal. They've sinned, so Allah increases them. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ فَزَادَهُمْ رِجْسًا إِلَى رِجْسِهِمْ. In another verse as well. He adds more sin into their sin. So we need to be careful of this. And we want to be on the safe side here. Okay? When a person performs a good deed for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, or learns something for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, one of the results is Allah Azza wa Jal increasing them in that good deed. So when a person has this kind of iman, when their aqeedah is very tight and very strong and very steadfast, there's literally nothing that can shake them now. There is nothing now that can deter them from the righteous path, no matter how bad a situation might seem like. And the perfect example of this is none other than the Sahaba. Look at the Sahaba. We just discussed a few weeks ago in the Seerah, the persecution of the Sahaba in Mecca. What made them remain steadfast and not leave their religion? What made someone like Khabbab ibn al-Arat radiallahu anhu endure a punishment where his master was putting fire on his back and he still did not leave La ilaha illallah? What made Bilal ibn Rabah, even though a hot rock is being placed on top of his belly in the hot desert, and he is still saying Ahadun Ahad, and he's saying La ilaha illallah, the word of Tawheed? What is stopping him? What is keeping him so firm? It is this kind of aqeedah. It is this iman, this strong faith, this strong iman. How does a person gain the strong iman? It is one of the results of studying Allah Azza wa Jal and the names of Allah Azza wa Jal and the attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal. Of the benefits as well of studying the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal is naturally when you learn more about Allah Azza wa Jal, this will increase in the quality called at-taqwa. Now what is at-taqwa? We mentioned at-taqwa before, we defined it, right? It's a combination of being mindful of Allah Azza wa Jal, of having fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Basically, in a nutshell, taqwa is you are conscious, you are always aware that you are being watched at all times. Now, this is not, of course, I'm about to give an example, this is not to compare to Allah Azza wa Jal, but think of this way. Like you're at school, you're doing your final exam, you're doing your diploma exam, whatever it is, you're in the exam hall. Now you are focusing on your paper, you're doing your paper, and you're getting stuck on a question. And perhaps you feel some sort of temptation that I should look around. But even though you don't see the teacher in front of you, okay, even though I don't see the teacher, I know there's probably a teacher sitting somewhere in the corner. And I don't want to take the risk of doing something that will upset the teacher, such that the teacher will now take action against me. If the teacher catches me in an exam, cheating, he's going to take away my exam. Khalas, you're like zero, you've been caught cheating, you broke the rules of the exam, you're going to fail this exam. So now this is, of course, we're talking about exams and teachers and whatnot. With Allah Azza wa Jalla, of course, it's a different story, but the concept in itself is similar. Allah Azza wa Jalla is watching you at all time. Allah Azza wa Jalla is listening to you at all time. Allah knows what you're thinking. Allah knows what your heart desires. Allah knows what you're looking at. Allah hears what you're saying. And how can a person have this kind of awareness at all times? This comes through studying the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. When you understand the names of Allah, Al Basir, Allah is the all-seeing. Al Alim, Allah is the all-knowing. Al Khabir, Allah knows all kinds of news. Allah knows everything, all kinds of information about you. Allah is As Samir. Allah is listening even to this whispering that you're whispering to your friend. Allah Azza wa Jal can hear it, right? So when you start to learn about these names of Allah Azza wa Jal, naturally this will instill some kind of fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. Not fear as if like, oh, I'm going to start trembling. Rather fear that I don't want to disobey Allah because Allah will know about it. Okay? So as a result, a person will become more likely to follow the commands of Allah, to stay on the guidance, on the right path, and will be less likely to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal and go against His commands and do some sort of sins, even if they're in public, even if they are in secret, even if the lights are closed and their rooms are closed and they are under the cover of the bed and nobody's watching them, this person will now remember Allah Al Basir is seeing me. Allah is seeing me. Well, who am I hiding from? I'm hiding from people. How am I hiding from people when Allah Azza wa Jal is watching me right now? This kind of realization is only reached by someone who has reached a certain level of knowledge about Allah Azza wa Jal. And when they commit sins, and as I mentioned before, a lot of times, we are all human beings, okay? The most pious person in the world will commit sins. I will commit sins. You will commit sins. Everybody commits sins. As long as you are human, you will commit sins. This is just found in your nature. Everybody slips up. And it's not about whether you could, so the pious believer is not the one who does not commit any sins, because that's just impossible. The pious believer is the one whom when he commits a sin, he immediately remembers Allah Azza wa Jal. Dhakarullah. They remember Allah Azza wa Jal. They remember, oh my God, what did I just do? I just committed a crime. I just did something wrong, when I know that Allah is watching me, that Allah is seeing me. Allah will question me. Allah will ask me about this. And so this person will rush to do istighfar, no matter how small or how slight the sin is. And this is also another measurement. Sometimes a person might find a sin to be like, oh, small. Or, I said something to someone else, and you're like, it's so small. Like, it's just a small irritation. Like, it's not a big deal. But someone who has taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal will feel inclined to ask that person for forgiveness and make istighfar to Allah Azza wa Jal, no matter how small this sin might seem like. This small sin that other people might seem as very small, to this person will seem like there's a whole mountain on their back. Like they've committed the biggest crime and they're the worst person on the planet Earth. And so they feel the urge that I have to run back to Allah Azza wa Jal. So once again, we might hear these things and we might imagine like, how can, like, this is only imaginary, like this is all like theoretical, like how can a person actually reach that level? And I'm telling you, any Muslim can reach this level with basic knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is of the results of knowing Allah Azza wa Jal. One more point that we will mention of the benefits of learning of the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal is because when a Muslim understands who is Allah Azza wa Jal and the abilities of Allah Azza wa Jal, this will also increase their trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. So yes, increase taqwa, increase in fear, increase in awareness, but also increase in their tawakkul in Allah Azza wa Jal, increase in their trust in Allah Azza wa Jal, such that when you want to do anything in your life, the first one that you go to ask for help is Allah Azza wa Jal. No matter how small that thing is. Perhaps you want to ask for help in your homework. And maybe for a lot of us, the logical thing to do is to go and ask your friend who is better at you in the subject, right? So he can help you in the homework. Or maybe you want to go and ask your teacher or someone who is better than you. This person who is so connected to Allah Azza wa Jal will make actually dua out to Allah Azza wa Jal. And will ask, oh Allah, you are the one who has all the knowledge. So Allah, grant me knowledge which is beneficial for me. And one of the du'as, Rabbi zidni ilma. Oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. Then of course, you don't only make dua and you just close your eyes and you wait for information to just download in your mind. Okay, it doesn't work that way. Okay, it would have been nice if it worked that way. But you have to go and do some effort. Okay, now you can go and ask your teacher. Now you can go and ask your friend and help out. But the point here is someone who understands the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal will rely upon Allah Azza wa Jal for everything. So perhaps I might find myself in a situation and I need money and I'm struggling with my finances. And so I remember Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Allah is the one who has control of all that is all the provisions. He has the treasuries of the earth and of all the heavens and the earth. And so if He wills it, He can give to me. So I can ask, oh Allah, you are Ar-Razzaq, so grant me my rizq. And then of course you take the steps. So after you make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, you go and you start applying for certain jobs. You go and you seek out the means so that you can obtain your wealth. Similarly, maybe you find yourself in a very tight situation, no matter what the situation is, and you find yourself like you just think that you're in big trouble and you can't just seem to find an escape out of your situation. Then you remember that Allah is Al-Mudabbir. One of the names of Allah is the planner. He is the one who plans everything out for everyone and everything. He already knows the best route of action for you. He already knows what are the best actions that you can take for the rest of your life. So you raise your hands to Allah and you say, oh Allah, you are Al-Mudabbir. So as long as you are with me, I am putting my trust in you that you, whatever actions I take, this will be the best action for me. And that you will find me a way out of this situation. And Allah affirms this in the Quran. Allah says in one of the surahs, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever is conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah shall surely make a way out of that person. But there is that requirement. You need to be conscious of Allah. You need to remember Allah first. You need to ask Allah first, and then Allah, you take the steps, and Allah shall make a way out for you. So just similar to like Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, when he was being chased by Fir'aun, we all know the story of Musa alayhi salam. When he was running away with his people, with his followers, Musa alayhi salam was running with his followers from the army of Fir'aun. And eventually they reach a dead end. There is the sea in front of them. And the Banu Israel, they start freaking out. They are panicking. They say, we're done for. This is the end of the road. There is nowhere else for us to go. What does Musa alayhi salam he say? He say, this is not the end of the road for me. كلا إن ربي معي إن معي ربي سيهدين. Allah is with me and Allah shall guide me. And this is the attitude of a believer. And as soon as he said this, Allah Azza wa Jal told Musa, Ya Musa, grab your stick and hit the sea. And subhanAllah, who would have expected that the sea would split open and a way out would happen for Musa alayhi salam? So the same idea, if you think Allah split the sea for Musa alayhi salam, do you think that Allah Azza wa Jal will not bring you a way out of your situation no matter how bad it is? Allah is capable of anything, but you need to put your trust in Allah Azza wa Jal. How do I gain this trust? I have to go and learn who is Allah Azza wa Jal in the first place. Similarly, I might be feeling down. I might be feeling sad. I might feel broken. I might feel weak. The people around me are just doing whatever they want with me and I can't do anything. I know Allah is Al-Jabbar. I know Allah is the one who, He is the restorer. He is the one who restores something that is broken back to its original state. And so you ask Allah, you are Al-Jabbar. And so Allah, as long as you are with me, then I know that you will fix me and you will bring me back to my peak again after and get me out of this situation again. And so all of these, and again, I'm just giving examples out of a few names of Allah Azza wa Jal. But the same kind of logic applies when you reflect upon each and every one of the names of Allah Azza wa Jal. And honestly, wallahi, this comes to show you that Tawheed al-Asma' and al-Sifat is the essence of Allah. This is the heart of Tawheed. And we are, wallahi, so lucky that we are Muslims. We are so lucky that we have Allah Azza wa Jal who has taught us these attributes about Himself so that we can seek Him out when in any situation that we find ourselves in. SubhanAllah. Like imagine, think for a second, think of the Christians. Who are they praying to? They're praying to Jesus. Where is Jesus? They know He's crucified, He's dead on the cross. Are you praying to a dead God? Is He listening to you right now? Can He respond to you? Can He do anything to you? What benefit are you what benefit are you getting from praying to a cross and deceiving yourself into thinking that, oh, Jesus is my Lord and my Savior? What are you doing? Or even worse, the idol worshippers that we find today, the Hindu, the Buddhists, they worship statues of Buddha or statues of Krishna and all of these weird structures and statues that you might see there, like structures, some god or some figure that's doing this and it has like 10 hands or something and he looks blue. Like what the heck are you even doing, man? Like what is this even? What is this monstrosity that you have in front of you? Can this God see you right now? Can He hear you? Can He benefit you? If you call out to Him, can He do anything to help you? What are you doing? So we are so blessed as Muslims that when we find ourselves in tight situations, no matter how cornered you feel yourself, you feel like you are, there's always a way out for you. Wallahi, I am telling you, all of these people in other religions, they can say whatever they want. You go see what they do when they are in tight situations. There is a reason, by the way, why this country that we are in struggles with alcohol, struggles with drugs, struggles with mental health issues. If their religion was true, wallahi, they would not struggle with that. But because they don't have anything to do when they're cornered, who are they going to pray to? Jesus Christ? Someone who's on a cross like this, dead? What is he going to do to them? Or to this statue of 10 hands, what is he going to do to them? Muslims, we understand, La ilaha illallah. There is no God. None of all of these people are worshipping false gods. Whatever they can say, whatever they want, argue whatever they want. They can say, everybody lives their life however they want. But at the end of the day, I know Allah Azza wa Jal is with me. And Allah has all of these names and attributes, and I believe in them, and I will use them to get myself out and live a good and a peaceful life, and such that I might obtain Jannah in the hereafter as well. So we'll probably pause here for a few minutes, inshallah, so that we can pray. Also, any quick questions before we pause? Okay, so inshallah, let's pause right now. Let's go upstairs, pray Asr, and then we'll come back downstairs after the salah. Jazakumullah khair. Okay? Jazakumullah khair. So let's move on to the hadith of the week, which I had shared last week. عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الدنيا حلوة خضرة. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri is one of the famous narrators of hadith. He gives us this hadith from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ where he says, the dunya, the world, is sweet and green. Hulwa means sweet. Khadira means green. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَخْلِفُكُمْ فِيهَا فَيَنْظُرُ كَيْفَ تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah Azza wa Jal shall put you in this world, okay, shall make you the ones who are running this world, and He shall monitor you to see what you do in it. Okay? فَاتَّقُوا الدُّنْيَا. Therefore be mindful, be conscious, beware of the dunya. وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاء. And beware of women. We're going to explain what this means. فَإِنَّ أَوَّلَ فِتْنَةِ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ كَانَتْ فِي النِّسَاءِ. For the very first trial for the Banu Israel had to do with women. So before I jump into the explanation of this hadith, I want to see if anybody is willing to go ahead and share what they have found. Yes, you want to go ahead? Jazakumullah khairan. So we're gonna mention what you just mentioned, and we're gonna elaborate a little bit more, and especially this phrase, "beware of women." Like that always gets, especially the girls, confused. Like, oh, what did we do wrong? You know, like, are we evil now? Like, what's going on? So no, you're not evil. Okay, this is just the spoiler alert. You guys are not evil. You're not bad people. Okay, but there's a reason he said what he said over here. So first of all, first things first. He starts off by saying, "In the dunya hulwatun khadira." It is sweet and it is green. Now, what does he mean by dunya is sweet and green? Now, obviously, dunya is not something that you eat, okay? So it doesn't taste sweet, okay? And not the whole dunya is green. But when we say that someone is sweet, for example, okay? When you say, oh, such and such is such a sweet person, what does that usually mean? It's a good thing, right? It's you enjoy being with that person. It's a pleasure for you to be with this person. Shafi, you're not allowed into the room until your dad comes here, okay? Jazakallah khair. So this is what it means, sweet. Green, obviously, that we enjoy seeing the greenery, right? Like when you go to the mountains in Banff and other places, right? And you see the mountains, the rivers, the beautiful sight. It's pleasing to look at. So this is what he's indicating here. It's sweet and green, meaning there's a lot of things in this dunya that are pleasing to look at. And there are many experiences, many things and actions that you can do in this dunya that will give you a lot of pleasure. Okay? So Prophet ﷺ is telling us, Allah Azza wa Jal has created this dunya for you, and this is what He put in it. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مُسْتَخْلِفُكُمْ فِيهَا. And Allah Azza wa Jal shall make you guys the owners of this earth. And either the creation, the species that is currently in control of the earth, the human beings, right? There's no animals, I don't think, are in control of the earth, okay, right? It's the humans. But at the same time, Allah Azza wa Jal is saying He's going to watch what you are doing. Meaning Allah is simply watching at the moment and He's not going to take action. Right now is the monitoring stage, is the supervising stage. Okay? Just like the example I gave earlier in the exam hall. There's a teacher right now. He's watching all the students solve their exam. He's not going to go to the person who did well on the exam and be like, pat him on the back, good job, you answered that question correctly. Or go to the person who answered his question wrong in the exam and tell him, hey, you made a mistake, fix it, otherwise you're going to lose marks, right? It would have been nice if that's how schools work, right? The teachers come and tell you, hey, you did this wrong, and right? But it doesn't work that way. And our life doesn't work that way either. So our test in our life, Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who's monitoring us. So Allah will not interfere. If you do something good, if you just prayed Asr and you were focusing and you did khushu' and you did everything correctly, Allah is not going to send down the angels and they're going to like clap for you and like, well done, ya akhi, good job, keep it up, you did so well in that salah. Okay? It's not going to happen. And similarly, if you choose to go home and do something that is sinful, if you choose to yell at your parents, if you choose to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal, do something that is wrong, Allah is not going to send down a thunderbolt to strike you down and finish you off right on the spot. Allah Azza wa Jal is currently watching you to see what you are going to do. Now, why is He saying this? Why is He putting these two in this hadith? Because there are a lot of temptation in this dunya. When you see something that is pleasing, or when you are looking at something and or at least maybe you've heard that such and such an experience is a pleasing experience if you do it, you're gonna be tempted. You're now exposed to temptations, and it takes a lot of effort to resist these kinds of temptations, right? Sometimes you might see something and you know that it is haram, but even though it's haram, you find it difficult to take your eyes off it. Or perhaps there is something that is pleasing. You're going to get a lot of happiness from it. You see a lot of people enjoying it. And you're like, oh, I want to enjoy it too. But then Islam tells you it's haram. But now you're tempted. You have such a strong urge. I want to go and do that. So the Prophet ﷺ is warning you. You can do whatever you want, but Allah right now is watching you. And Allah, whether you do good or bad, right now in this dunya, Allah Azza wa Jal is simply monitoring you. This life that you are currently living in, this is a life that is an exam. And throughout our life, there are many kinds of exams that you will be encountering. Every situation, every difficulty that you encounter in life is an exam to see what are you going to do. When you see a poor person who asks you for money, what are you going to do? This is an exam. When your friend is tempting you to start cheating in an exam, or tempting you to do something that is haram, this is an exam for you. When your parents tell you to go and do some chores at home and you don't want to do them and you don't want to listen to them, or when you're in a bad mood and you feel like you just want to like explode on this person who's in front of you and just like stick it out on them, this is an exam for you. All of these situations are different exams, and certain exams are of different difficulty. And the word that we typically use for this exam, I keep using this word exam, the word that is typically associated with these exams of life is typically called a fitna. Okay? Fitna. So whenever you read in the Quran this word fitna, or you see in the hadith this word fitna, think of it as this is an exam in life, a big exam, and Allah Azza wa Jal is going to test me, and He's going to grade me on the Day of Judgment according to how I do in this exam. So in this hadith, Allah Azza wa Jal, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he specifies two exams in particular that you need to be conscious of. One is a general exam, and the other is a more specific exam. What is the general exam? He specifies a dunya. Be careful of this dunya. Be careful of the temptations of this dunya. There are many things in this dunya that look pleasing. There are many things in this dunya that many people out there do, which might be pleasing to them, right? So be careful of this dunya. Don't be deceived. Meaning, don't attach yourself to this dunya. Don't lose the sight. Don't lose sight of the ultimate goal. Remember your true purpose. And this is one of the reasons why you guys are coming here to study and to learn. To constantly remind yourself that your true purpose. Boys, if you don't have interest in what we are saying, please just do me a favor and leave the room, please, okay? If you don't want to listen, you don't want to pay attention, you want to be on your phone, you want to whisper to the person next to you, out of respect for the hadith, for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, for Allah Azza wa Jal, just go take your distraction somewhere else. I only want people who actually want to come and listen here, okay? Jazakumullahu khair. So, beware of this dunya. Don't attach yourself to this dunya. Realize that all of these pleasures and all of these temptations, money and gold and silver and cars and houses and traveling the world and all of these things, these are temporary. Okay, you're going to enjoy them for 50, 60 years in your life, and then what? And then you're going to spend 1,000 years in the grave, maybe 2,000, 5,000 years in the grave. Is it worth for you to waste your life or to distract yourself from your goal just for the sake of this temporary dunya? So this is what Prophet Muhammad is warning us about. Beware of this dunya. Don't get tempted by this dunya. Don't attach yourself to this dunya. And then he mentions a more specific one, and this is one that I want to spend a little bit time talking about. وَاتَّقُوا النِّسَاءَ. And beware of women. Beware of women. Now, are women evil? Are women bad people? Some of the best Muslims to ever walk the face of this earth are women. Aisha radiallahu anha, amazing woman. Khadija radiallahu anha. Maryam alayha salam. There's a whole surah in the Quran called Maryam. There's a whole surah in the Quran called Surah An-Nisa. So do you think that Prophet is telling you that the women are bad people or they are evil? Obviously not. So this is the first thing that we need to get out of our head. It's not that women are evil, but there is something associated with women that makes them not a threat. It makes if they choose the evil route, it makes them a great source of evil. Okay? And subhanAllah, if you look and read the history of Islam throughout, not just the Seerah, beyond the Seerah as well. Because the Seerah, it's the peak. The Muslims, spoiler alert, by the end of the Seerah, the Muslims are going to become victorious. They're going to conquer all of Arabia, right? And after, beyond the Seerah, they're going to conquer the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire. They're going to conquer Europe. They're going to conquer Spain. It's going to become Andalus. They're going to go all the way down to China as well. Islam is going to spread all over the land. And subhanAllah, it's amazing to see that within barely a few hundred years, Islam is like everywhere, and Islam is at the peak, at the top, and nobody can resist against the Muslims. And yes, there are issues that happen every now and then, but overall, Muslims remain always at the top. Fast forward to today, 2025, where you see the superpowers of today's world. They are all non-Muslims. Okay? They all hate Islam. And the Muslim governments are friends with those people who hate Islam, and they are bad towards their own Muslims, and Islam is probably at an all-time low today. So what happened there? Obviously, a lot of things happened. But of the things that happened is the enemies of Islam, they figured something out at one point. At one point in history, they figured something out because they realized that these Muslims, they don't fear anything. They don't fear anyone. They only fear Allah Azza wa Jalla. They don't even fear death. How can you fight? How can you defeat an army that does not fear death? Like today, even today, in today's wars and battles that take place, a soldier, at the end of the day, he does not want to die. He's not going to throw his life away. Muslims, they were competing to see who's going to get killed first in the battle. Because to them, they're going to get shahada. That's a free ticket to Jannah. They all want shahada. They all want Jannah, right? And after war, sometimes some of them will be upset that, I didn't get killed in the battle. I fought so hard. Obviously, they're not like suiciding, right? They're fighting hard. And some people, like Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu anh, he fought so many battles and he cried on his deathbed because he was like, I did not die as shaheed. I did not die in the battle. I did not die with the sword cutting me down. So the enemies were like, how can we possibly defeat people who have no attachment to this dunya, who are not scared about anything, and who are only afraid of Allah Azza wa Jal? They then figured the equation out. We need to do something that changes that. We need to do something that no longer makes them only fear Allah Azza wa Jal, that no longer makes them not scared of death. We have to put something that makes their hearts attached to this world, that makes them enjoy this world, so that they want this world now. Now, because if they want this world, as I mentioned this at the start, the heart can only be attached to one thing. Now, if they want this world, this automatically means they don't want death anymore. And when someone is not fighting to the death anymore, his motivation is going to go this much down in the battlefield. So, what did they do? They realized that one evil woman that can go into a society, give her a cup of wine, and make sure that she is all dressed up and she's all good looking, and put her in the middle of a society, and she will corrupt the strongest society out there. More effective than 1,000 cannons or 1,000 machine guns or anything. The power of one woman, the power of one evil woman who is out there to misguide people. And this is what the hadith says. This was what happened to the Banu Israel. Some of the women, the followers of Musa alayhi salam, some of them, they went astray. They started going against the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal. They started dressing up the way that they want. They started walking and doing and living their life the way that they want to live their life, doing the actions that they want to live. And as a result, they became a source of temptation to other people. And eventually they went astray and they misled other people as well. And they misguided other people as well. And eventually all of Banu Israel was doomed. The fitna of Banu Israel that misled them was the fitna of women. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is warning us, he's telling us, don't be like them. They fell into this fitna. They failed this fitna and they lost their deen. And subhanAllah, fast forward today. Look at what's happening today in Saudi Arabia, in the lands of Mecca, and in the same land that has Mecca and Medina. You guys probably all heard the news at some point. They literally paid, invited like half naked or fully naked dancers to dance around a structure that looks like the Kaaba. And the Muslims are out there clapping for them and throwing money at them and paying them millions and millions of dollars. What has happened to the Muslim Ummah? And this is the warning of the Quran. And it's telling you, of course, Shaitan is the mastermind behind them. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ. Don't let this dunya deceive you, and don't let the big deceiver deceive you. Big deceiver is who? The Shaitan. Don't let these temptations deceive you. Make sure your eye does not go away from what is your ultimate goal out there. Now, at the same time, I want to also correct and understand. Like I really want to be clear about this issue. When it comes to love between a man and a woman, and again, we have to say this because there is nothing shameful about it. Okay, there's nothing wrong about it. Is the feeling of love haram? Is the feeling of love haram? No. It's a natural human instinct. It's a mercy that Allah Azza wa Jalla has put in every single human being. Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Allah has installed inside of your hearts love and mercy for one another. Allah has made man attracted to woman and woman attracted to man. I'm not even going to get bothered into the discussion of the weird trends that are happening today. Okay, then the default in life is man is attracted to woman, woman is attracted to man. So there is nothing wrong about feeling the sense of attraction, the feeling of love, experiencing that emotion. What's the problem is what you do with that emotion. Now, okay, you're feeling this kind of emotion. What action are you going to take out of it? So Muslims have certain guidelines. And this is why, for the most part, we don't allow free mixing. Boys can't be friends with girls. You can't go and hang out together and do many things together and talk to each other and laugh and play and do all of these things with each other, so that you are within these bounds. But of course, at one point in life, inshallah, one day, you will all find yourself at a stage where you potentially will get married. Well, obviously, when you get married, you're going to talk to a person of the opposite gender. Whether you're a man, you're going to talk to a woman, or a woman, you're going to talk to a girl. At that point, it's a different story. You're looking to grow that connection between you, and then you can get married under the rules of Allah Azza wa Jal, and nikah can take place, and then khalas. And then, in fact, this is a beautiful relationship now. This is a halal relationship that follows all the guidelines, and a person is actually rewarded for this kind of behavior. However, if a person allows this desire to overcome them, and now they are allowing them to this desire to manifest in a wrong way, like we see it all around us today, then this is the number one reason that will destine a whole society for destruction. Complete destruction. The main reason today why you guys in school today are struggling with seeing rainbow flags and weird things and weird trends and weird looking people, right, is because of this one fact over here. When you start to make normal what is wrong, this is the result. Love and attraction, yes, it's normal. Going up and talking to each other and like, hey, how you doing? Can I get your number? Can I add you on Snapchat? Can you follow me on Instagram? I'll follow you back. You know, she likes your posts, I like her posts. What is this? And you're bending the rules and you say, oh, where's it say in the Quran? Where does it say that it's haram? Are you out of your mind? Don't make me start saying things that I shouldn't say in the masjid right now. Are you out of your mind? Go and read the Quran. The Quran orders you to lower your gaze. The Quran orders you to watch what you say. So how are you allowing yourself all of these things when they are clearly haram? And one of the general characteristics, just for your information out there, especially for women who are out there, especially for those of you who are who sometimes go on the side who are arguing like, oh, what's wrong with me, beautifying myself out in the public? There is a general rule. Okay, and of course it's not set in stone. Okay, there's always exceptions to this, but overall, men are very simple creatures. Okay, and they tend to fall in love with what they see. Men, this is a fact. Men tend to fall in love with what they see. Women, they don't fall in love as fast as men. It usually takes them like, yes, okay, they're impressed by someone's looks, but it takes them a little bit more time. Like, okay, character matters, their how the way that they talk, the way that they do, what actions they do, then you will find the emotions of love sinking in. Men are much, much more simpler than this. They see something that looks good, they're like, oh, we're in love. Okay? And subhanAllah, and it's a sad reality. It's a sad reality. I know we're laughing about this right now. It's partially human nature, but at the same time, it's for the most part. Think about what happens in your own public schools today. Okay, how many of you go to public schools? Okay, so a decent chunk of us, we go to public schools. So especially with the boys, and I know this for a fact because I remember I went to public schools, and I know exactly what you boys talk about. Not you boys, but what the boys in public schools for the most part talk about. What happens when in the hallway just one girl walks, and she has the full package. We'll just say it that way. Okay, she's dressed up very nicely. Her hair is done so nicely, and the makeup, and she's wearing tight clothing, shorts, and everything, and obviously, and perfume that someone from 1 kilometer away can smell her perfume. This woman, without her looking at anybody, without her saying a single word, just the fact that she is walking in this hallway, half the boys in the school just fell in love. Let's be completely honest. I know I'm being very blunt here, but it's the truth. This is the truth. And you guys, especially the boys, you guys know, and mostly this is for the non-Muslim, and your non-Muslim friends, what is one of their most favorite topics in school to talk about? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Say it out loud. Okay, who is here? Girls, right? You talk about girls. Oh, yeah, you saw that girl Ashley in the class, bro. She was, oh my God, did you see her walking in the hallway? Oh my God, what are you doing, brother? I'm gonna smack you in the face right now, huh? Like, what is going on over here? Okay? And again, this is, in one way, I'm trying to make this sound like a joke, but for the most part, this is actually reality. Isn't this what is happening in public schools? And as a result, you see many girls around you who are not Muslims, who don't have this halal and haram boundaries. They dress up the way that they want because they want to be the center of attention. And men, their eyes are, mashallah, left and right, and they want to capture as much as they can. This is the society that we live in today. And this, once again, we go back to this hadith. Dunya is green. Dunya is sweet. Dunya has a lot of things that are pleasing to look at, but not everything that is pleasing to look at should be looked at. Dunya has a lot of experiences which may seem like they are full of pleasure. When you see someone telling you about his experiences, boyfriend and girlfriend, and all of these things that are happening in school, and you feel like, oh my God, I wish I had that in my life. It seems like so much fun. We can do this and we can that, and we can travel the world and we can do this. Not every kind of experience should be experienced as a Muslim. This is the test of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah put in you this desire, but if you don't keep that desire in check, it can ruin a whole society. And this is the reality that we live in today. And by the way, again, I know I am being very blunt today, and some of us might feel like a little bit uncomfortable in this kind of conversations, but I cannot sugarcoat the world that we live in today. Just open the TV. Actually, probably don't. You're better off not opening the TV. But if you were to open the TV for 10 minutes, just think of the last time you opened the TV or you watch a YouTube ad. You'll find an ad about like a perfume. And 90% of the ad is a woman. A model who's doing she's looking in a place and then she's doing certain things, and then in the last 3 seconds of the ad, she's holding the bottle of perfume. So you're telling me a 1 minute ad at 57 seconds of a woman, just women, and then the last 3 seconds she's holding a perfume. Or you're giving me the advertisement for the latest Ford that just came out. Okay, I want to see the car. Why is there a woman dressed in a mini skirt and in high heels and lots of makeup and hair standing next to the car? Why is this woman driving the car in the advertisement? Why? Because once again, I am telling you, wallahi, the Muslims here, they figured it out. They're like, if we want to get people's attention, if we want to get people to buy our product, we need to use women. Not men. Who cares about men? Just throw them on the side. Women. Good-looking, decorated, wanton display. We mentioned wanton display last week, right? Tabarruj. Put them, decorate them, make them look nice, make them look attractive, make them look good, appeal to the people who are watching, and people are going to buy our product. People are going to now look at what the ad is actually talking about. So subhanAllah, it's human psychology, and it's being used in today for businesses so that they can make tons and tons of money. So the moral of all of this, why am I going into all of this? When you end up with a society that is founded on people who are following their desires, you have on one side men literally turning into animals, right? Literally, because animals, they don't use their brain. Whatever they feel like doing, they do. When they desire something, they do it. When a dog feels like pooping, it will stop and it will poop right where it's standing. And in a way, if men or if a society is founded on people following their desires, then we are no better than animals. Men will turn into just animals who are living simply to fulfill their desires, fulfill the pleasure of looking and the pleasure of doing other things as well. And you will find, on the other hand, women who are choosing to throw away their honor, to throw away their dignity, and they are willing to transform into an object of desire. They want to transform into a doll. You know the doll? You know the Barbie doll that you go in the store and you play with it and you dress it up? That's what they turn themselves into. And again, I'm not talking about you guys. I'm just talking about in general, okay? This is what they turn themselves into. They dress up the way that people want them to be dressed up. They will look the people the way they want them to be looked. When society say we like skinny women, they will start to become skinny. When they will tell you we like women with straight hair, they will like put the straight hair. Makeup, they will put makeup. So they will literally become another Barbie doll. They will become nothing but an object of desires. And this is wallahi why we find a lot of young girls falling into depression. Lots and lots, more girls than boys, in fact. Many young girls falling into depression. Why? Because they base their honor and their pride based on how the opposite gender looks at them. So if the opposite gender gives them the attention and gives them the follows and the likes and praises them, and they're all surrounded by them, they're mashallah, they're up in the skies. They feel so big and inflated. And if somebody calls them something else, that you don't look very good, or they don't give them any attention, all of a sudden they are feeling depressed, and they're feeling bad, and they're feeling like, what's the point over here? And on the other hand, you find men, they will no longer view women as human beings. I am telling you, wallahi, this is the result of a society that is founded on desires. Everybody will not, men will simply turn into animals, and women will turn into dolls. And this is the society that we are living in today, by the way. And when this is the condition of the society, you have reached peak corruption. This is the worst society that a person can live in. And as a result, you will find weird things starting to happen, such as telling you, oh, what's wrong with man falling in love with man, or woman falling in love with women, or yahi, don't call me he or she, call me they, or today I'm gonna go and get surgery, and I'm gonna become some different alien creature. Like, what's going on? These things don't just simply come out of nowhere, just out of one guy or coming out in the streets. This is an accumulation of many things that have been happening in society for a long time. When everybody is distracted from worship, everybody is following these desires, families are destroyed. Families are destroyed. When people go and they start dating, one of the most common questions that I have today is, why is dating haram? What's the problem with dating? Honestly, what is not wrong with dating is the actual question here. What is not wrong with dating? How many things are wrong? You are destined, you are now. How many stories have you heard? Personally, wallahi, for myself, as someone who's done junior high and high school in public schools, I have not heard of a single relationship that is still found to this day, where the so-called boyfriend and girlfriend, they stay together. Mashallah, when they were in junior high and high school, we're gonna live and love each other forever, and we're gonna do this together, and we're gonna do that together. Not a single one of them lasted. Why? Because the man fell in love with his girl for the wrong reasons. He fell in love with what he saw. So when he saw another one who looked better, he's like, oh, throw away that old toy, I want a new toy now. Or same thing, the woman is now bored with this guy. This guy doesn't give me much attention. I'm getting more attention from these guys. I'm gonna throw him away. And so you'll find this guy cheats on this girl, and this girl cheats on that guy. And even when families, they have families together and they have children, there is no love. There is no bond. There is no, you don't have that same connection between mom and dad. And the son or the daughter is just in a different world completely. They don't have that connection with their parents. Why is all of this happening? Well, it just goes back to this. Dunya is green and it is sweet. Beware of the fitna of the dunya. Beware of the fitna of women. Now, in light of all of this, I know I went into a lot of detail, probably more details than you guys wanted. But how do I protect myself from falling into this? When I'm living in a society where everybody around me is doing this. Again, the solution is mentioned in the Quran. And if the hadith is telling us that dunya is green, it's pleasing to look at, then perhaps the first solution is don't look at it. And there's a reason why Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us in the Quran, gaze. You see, a person might have a thought, a desire, but it's in their mind. As long as it's something in the mind, you can get rid of it easily. As soon as you look at that thing that you are desiring, now it changes the whole equation. Now it becomes 100 times more difficult. For example, and again, it's very simple. If I am thinking to myself, oh, I want to eat a nice chicken shawarma from Jerusalem, and maybe a few minutes come by and khalas, I forget about it. But if I think to myself, I want to eat a juicy shawarma, and then I see in front of me someone walk with a big, nice, fat, juicy shawarma with garlic and all of the toppings inside of it. Now I'm looking at it, and now maybe I'm starting to drool, and I'm like, oh, I'm now really wanting it. You see, had I lowered my gaze and not looked at that shawarma, things would have been a little bit different. I would not have desired the shawarma that much now. And the same thing comes even when it comes between men and women. Yes, we mentioned the desire is in itself is not haram. Love is not haram. Attraction is not haram. It's part of your human nature. But just because it's a desire does not mean that you're allowed to act on it. Just because you saw someone in your school that is, so good looking. That does not give you the green pass to look at it. Now that you're looking, you have opened the window. The eyes, as they say, the scholars, they say it, the eyes are the window to your heart. Now you've allowed that desire to enter into your heart. And now you're going to have an even stronger temptation. And it's going to become much, much more difficult for you to resist that urge. And when you start to act on that urge, and you are now experiencing it, and now you walked up to that girl or you walked up to that guy, and now you started talking to them, knowing that this desire is currently burning in your heart, now it's infinitely more difficult to walk away from that desire. Because you're not just going to cut the conversation midway and you're just going to run away from them. Be like, oh, haram, haram, astaghfirullah. Okay? So don't put yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in. How do I avoid this in the first place? Lower your gaze. If you want to have a happy life, if you want to enjoy the desire of love, the desire of attraction, there's a reason why Allah gave you the Sharia. There's a reason why Allah gave you what is halal and what is haram. Lower your gaze and you will enjoy what is halal. When the time comes, you will get to enjoy what is halal for you. And last one, which I'll mention for the girls. Now I understand sometimes, and this is one of the tests that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you in specific, that sometimes you might feel tempted to look the same way as some people in your society, in the society. Maybe alhamdulillah, you're wearing your hijab, you're wearing your abaya, you're dressing up appropriately, but perhaps now you want to take and bend some rules. You now want to start all of a sudden making it allowed for you to wear certain clothing that shows details of your body. Or you want to make it allowed for you to put on makeup. And you're saying to yourself, what's the problem? Why is it haram? What's the problem? I'm wearing my hijab, I'm doing this and wearing that. Know for a fact, Islam has come to give you your honor and dignity. And by you choosing to walk away from it, you are choosing to throw away your honor and your dignity. One of the major reasons why the society has a really big thing against hijabis and against niqabis and against any Muslim woman who looks like they are covered up and looking that they are dressed up, and they start throwing words at you like, oh, you Muslim women are oppressed, you are so masakeen, you have to cover up, you have to do this, you have to do that, is because they are upset that you have what they don't have. They have lost something that you are holding on tight onto. And so they are trying to break you. They are trying to break you. They're getting bothered by it, and they're throwing you these names because they are bothered that they are failing to break your dignity. They are failing to transform you into an object of desire like they want. If you were today to start wearing the same things that they do and to start dressing up and going out in the streets the same way they do, they will love you. They will accept you. You will have 10 times more friends than you have today. You will be loved. You'll be popular. Why? Because you're now one of them. You have thrown away something that you had so that you become, and sorry for the blunt word, you become trash, just like them. So hold on to your Islam. Hold on to your Islam. They don't know what to say to you other than what to mock you. The reason they're mocking you is because you have what they don't have. Just like a little kid who is throwing a tantrum, okay? And who doesn't know what to say just because he's not getting what he wants, he will start shouting and yelling random things and just to get attention and just so that they can bother the person who's in front of them. That's exactly what the people here in the West are doing. So don't get bothered by these names. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's upsetting sometimes, but know that the reason you are being put in this is because you have more honor, you have more dignity, you have more pride than them. And this is an honor that this is a badge of honor that Islam has given you. And they wish they had what you had. Believe me, wallahi, when I say this. They wish they had what you had. So don't be deceived what you see here in the West. Anyways, I think I've explained long enough about this hadith. So I will share the hadith of next week, inshallah, on the group chat. But before that, I do want to open the door for questions. And please ask whatever you really want to ask, okay? Like this, there is a reason I went into a lot of details and I was very blunt in this. It is, in my opinion, the biggest challenge that you guys are facing today in society. Okay? And even honestly, in the Muslim lands today, back in the day, it used to be a little bit more conservative. Now it's starting to become more open. It's a very, very big struggle. And many people, I understand, many people your age, you might lose sight of what is allowed and what is not allowed. What is the boundary? Or why is the boundary even there in the first place? You have to understand this is all for your own sake and for your own benefit. And this is why, please, if you have questions about this, then please go ahead and ask right now. Or you can talk to me after the class too if this is something that's really bothering you as well. No? I can't tell if you're like completely confused or lost or sleepy or uninterested or you're just like, come on, just move on. Yes? Correct. Correct. So the Quran, it tells the men first to avert their gaze because men, again, they fall in love with what they see. But the women also should avert their gaze as well. They should not be go looking from this guy to that guy. What does this guy have? What does this guy own? Uh, Lower the gaze as well. Yes. So even the women, they are expected to lower the gaze. Yes. If you are driving in the car, if you're driving in the car, you're not going to be, hopefully, you're not going to be looking at things other than the road, okay? But since you mentioned this, by the way, I just remembered a fun fact that I read a while back. Less than 100 years ago, the same country that you're living in right now that is dressing so openly, they actually used to dress the same way that a lot of you right now are being dressed. Hijabs, abayas, even though they're not Muslims, but it was part of being modest. And it's actually recorded that when the first woman walked out in the street with her legs exposed, some people were so shocked and they did not avert their gaze that there were car accidents that happened because of this. So today, obviously, we don't have this issue as much, but this is one of the reasons of wattaqun nisa. Beware of women. Any questions? Okay, no questions. I'll just move on. And again, I apologize if anybody got a little bit upset or uncomfortable with some of the things that I said. But you guys know me by now. I just have to. Sometimes there is no other way to say it. There's no other way to sugarcoat it except to just say give it out bluntly, even if it means that someone who's going to get uncomfortable or upset, or even someone who's watching is going to get triggered, like, oh, you're saying this, you're saying that, and how dare you say this? And I'll say, I don't care. Like if you're upset, then it is what it is. So, anyways, moving on. Why is it dangerous when a person does not show interest in knowing Allah Azza wa Jal? Sir Muhammad. Very good. This is now they're neglecting their main purpose in life, and this is an indication that their heart is not attached to Allah and is attached to something else. How does knowing the names of and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal help a person in times of difficulty? Yes. Exactly. The more you know about the names of attributes of Allah, that Allah is Al-Razzaq, Allah is the one who is Al-Mudabbir, like the examples I mentioned. So this will give you steadfastness, just like the steadfastness of the Sahaba, just like the people of Gaza, right? No matter how much calamity and massacring they're going under, they still are steadfast. They will still thank Allah Azza wa Jal because they have this relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. How does knowing the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal affect a person's taqwa? Yes, in the front. Exactly. So a person increases in taqwa when they know more about Allah, and this will cause them to obey Allah more, to disobey Allah less, and even when they fall into a sin, they will repent back to Allah immediately. How does knowing the names of Allah, names and attributes of Allah, affect a person's trust and tawakkul in Allah Azza wa Jal? This is for you girls. It's not a trick question. Yes. Exactly. Like even so, a person who knows Allah Azza wa Jal will know that Allah Azza wa Jal has got my back. Allah is Allah can see everything. Allah is planning everything. Allah is capable of anything. And I know Allah Azza wa Jal will help me out whatever situation I find myself in. Whatever it is, even if it's something as small as a homework question, I will always rely on Allah Azza wa Jal to help me out first, and then I will rely on someone else. What does Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mean when he says sweet and green in the hadith that we just explained? Yes, in the back. Sorry? It's nice, it's pleasing, so it's sweet, means like it's pleasing to experience, right? And green, it's pleasing to look at, right? It has many things which are pleasing to look at. Why did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ warn us about the trial of women? Yes. Now, very good. An evil woman has the potential to cause lots of corruption. Just like, by the way, and I didn't mention this, just like, by the way, a good and a pious woman can raise a whole ummah on her own. Who at the end of the day, in a household, who ends up raising the kids? Who ends up teaching them the manners and the akhlaq, and who is with them, taking care of them most of the time? In an average household, usually it's the mother. So a woman has the potential to do lots of good and raise a generation like the Sahaba and the Tabi'un, raise people like Sheikh Al-Imam Al-Bukhari, like Al-Imam Muslim. Or it has potential to go on the flip side and cause mass corruption. What is the most effective method to protect a person from looking at what is forbidden? Yes, with a hat in the back. Okay, don't raise your hand then. Ayub. To lower the gaze, right? So lowering your gaze, and also as well, I forgot to mention this as well. Don't put yourself in a place or surround yourself with people that will cause you to fall into temptation. Like, okay, let's say you are a, alhamdulillah, boys. Let's say you are a good Muslim, alhamdulillah, and you are doing your best. You're lowering your gaze, and you're doing all of these things. Don't go now at school and hang out with people who don't lower their gaze, because eventually they're going to cause you to slip up. Okay, so be careful where you are going. Don't go to a place where like, everybody is going to be. You're not going to be able. Like, you're going to go to a place where everybody's dressed up immodestly, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and I'm going to lower gaze. Like in summer, people like I don't understand the people who go to Stampede. I'm sorry, like I know a lot of Muslim families, they make up excuses. They go to Stampede, a place where a filthy place where people are drinking alcohol, and you have people dressed up immorally everywhere. How are you gonna lower your gaze, bro? You're telling me, oh, I'm gonna come to the masjid, and then later I'm gonna go to Stampede, and later in the day, Allahu Akbar. Good luck lowering your gaze, habibi. Good luck. So don't put yourself in a location, or don't hang out with the people who will cause you to fall into this kind of wrongdoing. As a Muslim and living in the West, how should a person live their life if they want to protect themselves and other people? Yes? Sorry? So keep your honor, keep your dignity as a woman through following the Quran and Sunnah. Again, you can't go wrong with that answer. Follow the Quran and the Sunnah. Whatever the Quran tells you, or whatever Prophet Muhammad tells you about dressing up, and this is applied by the way to both the boys and girls. We commonly say to the girls, but it's also applicable to the boys, and I mentioned this before. So when the Quran tells you need to put on the hijab, you have to cover your neck, you have to cover all of your hair, you have to cover all of the body parts so that nobody on the outside can know the details out of your body. You need to do this. Okay, there is no other way around this. You can't bend the rules, and you can't start arguing now. And similarly as well to the boys, don't think you guys are going to get away. Similarly as well, in the summer, all of you, mashallah, almost like you guys are wearing mini shorts, almost, astaghfirullah al-azim, what are you guys wearing? Nobody wants to look at your thighs, yakhi. Okay, cover that up. Nobody wants to look at your thighs. Okay, so that's awra. When you go to the swimming pool, you're not allowed to show certain things. Okay, so or even in the locker rooms, in the gyms, and at schools, or in the swimming pools and whatnot. I know we live in a society where people find it no problem to dress even in front of same gender. Okay, there's a certain boundary as Muslims for us. Okay, you're not allowed to just go, mashallah, commando mode and do certain. You know what I'm saying. Khalas, you get the point, right? So just follow the rules that are mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah, and realize and believe and have this faith at all times that the Quran and Sunnah is not coming to make your life difficult and miserable. It's not coming to oppress you. It's not coming to restrict you. Rather, it has come to give you your honor, your pride. It has come to give you your respect that you deserve, and has come to teach you the healthiest and the best way to enjoy your life. Okay, any questions about any of this stuff? Or should I just move on? Move on? Move on. Okay, so we're continuing fiqh, the sunnahs of salah. Inshallah, today we'll conclude the sunnahs of salah. So we mentioned all a list of sunnahs last week, and you should go and review them as of course. We mentioned things like saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, right, during the salah, raising your hand as well, right? All of these things. Now, one thing that I thought I mentioned last time, I didn't mention actually last time because I wanted to give the sunnahs in order. One of the sunnahs that at the start of the salah is right after takbiratul ihram. So we mentioned takbiratul ihram. You have to say the rukn is to say Allahu Akbar. The sunnah is I raise my hand, okay, and I put my hands like this. But before you start reciting al-Fatiha, there is actually a sunnah. And there is a dua that is called Dua al-Istiftah. Dua al-Istiftah, the opening dua that you should do. And there are many versions of this dua. Perhaps you already have a different version memorized. The one that I have up here on the screen that I think all of you guys should memorize is the easiest one out of all the different du'as that you can do. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika tabaraka ismuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk. Okay? Which means, yani Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, all glory and all praise is to you, O Allah. Tabarak ismuk, blessed is your name. Wa ta'ala jadduk, and yani exalted is your majesty. Wa la ilaha ghayruk, and there is no God other than you. So this is the dua al-istiftah that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to say before starting al-Fatiha and after takbiratul ihram. And this is why you will notice, and a lot of times when we're praying in a jama'ah, in the loud prayers, right? When, for example, you're praying Isha or Maghrib, after the Imam says Allahu Akbar, it does not just start immediately, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. There's a pause, like there's like a 10-second pause. There's Allahu Akbar, and there's a pause. And you're like, okay, when is he going to start? And then he says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim quietly, and then he says Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen out loud. This pause is because he is saying this dua, and you should also take advantage of this pause so that you can say this dua as well, such that you are following the sunnah. Of the sunnahs of prayer as well is to hold the arms away from the sides when you are bowing in ruku' or whether you are prostrating in sujood. Holding the arms away, because Prophet Muhammad, there's a long hadith where Uqba ibn Amr, he narrates the salah of Prophet Muhammad and he says, وَجَافَ بَيْنَ مِرْفَقَيْهِ حَتَّى اسْتَقَرَّ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ مِنْهُ. So he moved his arms away, and he mentioned this phrase twice, one during ruku' and one during sujood. So meaning, don't stick your arms close to your sides when you are doing ruku' or sujood. So like in this picture here, you can see his elbows are not like sticking to his body. Okay? They are out there. So just to kind of demonstrate, I'll demonstrate this quickly for the ruku' and for the sujood. So for the ruku', don't put your arms like this, okay? Like don't, if you see the elbows, you're sticking them to the sides, don't do that. That's not something you should do. So as I mentioned last time, your palms of your hand are on your knees, your fingers are spread out, and your elbows are like nowhere touching your side. Okay, so they're straight like this, and you're looking down at your place of sujood. Does that make sense? So your arms are away from your sides. The same thing for sujood. In sujood, you don't, you're putting your hands like this. Don't make sujood like this. Okay, where your elbows are like sticking to your body. Okay, do them like this, okay? So you're putting your arms like this, and you're like putting your hands like your head like this, and this is how your arms should be. So I'm not doing sujood like this, I'm doing sujood like this, okay? This is the sunnah of making sujood, okay? So you should not be putting your arms, and your elbows, by the way, a very common mistake that I see, your elbows should never touch the floor in sujood. We mentioned in sujood, there should only be 7 things touching the floor. Your forehead, your nose, your 2 hands, your 2 knees, and your toes. That's the only thing that should be touching, and the toes as well. So your feet should not be elevating up in the air, okay? They should be touching the floor during sujood. Now, by the way, however, there's a quick side point over here. When you are praying in jama'ah, okay, and the space is very tight, then sometimes you find like there's no other choice but to put your arms a little bit closer together. You guys know what I'm talking about. Sometimes your sujood space is so tight, and you're just like, I have to like, compress myself a little bit just so that I can make my sujood. In this case, it's fine. Like you're not gonna bother the next person next to you. Like, get out of here, like, and you start having like, I know some people, they literally start having like a tug of war with their arms during sujood. Like, no, 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 I want more space, and this guy like, no, I want more space. Okay, this is wrong. Now this is like going completely against the point of salah. You're now ruining the khushu' of you and the person next to you, and the person next to you is doing the same thing as well. Okay, so if you find that you are tight on space, don't push the person next to you. Don't start pushing against them. It's okay to move your arms in a little bit. Okay, but if you're, let's say, praying sunnah after salah, or if you are praying by yourself, move your arms away. Okay, and never ever, whether it's single or in jama'ah, never ever touch your elbows in the floor. Okay, don't ever put your elbows on the floor. This is one of the sunnahs of ruku' and sujood. Of the sunnahs as well is to recite the extra tasbih when you are in ruku' and sujood. So, for example, we mentioned in the wajib, when we were mentioning the obligations, the wajibat of as-salah, we mentioned the wajib is to say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim once. And the wajib also to say in sujood Subhana Rabbi al-A'la once. As long as you say it once, then your salah is valid. You can continue and there's nothing wrong. But the sunnah, however, is to say it more than once. And we have different ahadith. Some ahadith they tell you do it 3 times, and that's usually what we commonly do. But in this hadith, for example, I have up on the screen, and he says, we estimated that Prophet Muhammad would say 10 times Subhana Rabbi al-Azim and 10 times Subhana Rabbi al-A'la in his ruku' and his sujood. Now, what is this telling you? You should increase in your tasbih, okay? Don't just say it once. Don't just say it twice. 3 times, that's fine. Alhamdulillah, that's good, and that's what's usually commonly done. But even if you have the opportunity to do more, so for example, the imam, you're praying behind an imam, and the imam is taking his time in his sujood, he's doing a long sujood for whatever reason, you can now add more tasbih. Don't just go quiet after 3 Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, okay? So take this opportunity, add more and more tasbih as well, okay? So this is another sunnah of prayer. The next sunnah is sitting in a position called al-iftirash. Al-iftirash after the second rak'ah. And obviously I'm not going to demonstrate this right now. Inshallah, next week I will demonstrate the full salah from start to end with all the sunnahs and all the obligations and all the arkan, such that we can benefit from this, inshallah. But for now, we can just do this picture. So, and commonly we see people sitting like this in their salah. This is the sunnah of how you sit after the second rak'ah in your salah, after the first tashahhud in your salah. Okay? So if you are, for example, right now when you are praying, we're in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, we're going to pray Maghrib, for example. After the second rak'ah in Maghrib, when you sit down for the first tashahhud, this is the position of your feet. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, this is narrated in the description of the salah. He says, فَإِذَا جَلَسَ فِي الرَّكْعَتَيْنِ After the 2 rak'ahs, meaning after the first 2 rak'ahs, جَلَسَ عَلَى رِجْلِهِ الْيُسْرَى وَنَصَبَ الْيُمْنَى So he would sit on his left foot, like this picture, okay? And he would prop up his right foot. So he would curl his toes, okay? Such that they are like facing the qibla, and he would raise it up like this, okay? Now I know for those of us who are not used to this kind of position, the first few times you do it is not going to be very comfortable, okay? And one time even the Sahaba complained, they were like, why would you sit like this? This hurts our feet. And he said this is how Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to do it. So maybe the first few times you do it, yes, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but your body will eventually get used to it. So you should do it. And this is, by the way, for both boys and girls, by the way. So it's not different for the girls as well. So this is the position called al-iftirash. You are sitting on your left foot and you're propping up your right foot. Make sense? And similarly, by the way, even between the 2 sujood, some people wonder, what do I do with my feet? This is also what you should do. This is one of the ways that you can sit down in between the 2 sujood. So you say Allahu Akbar, you sit down and say Rabbi ighfirli, and you are sitting like this. And then you go back to sujood and you put your toes back again in sujood. Okay? So this is the sunnah when it comes to after the first tashahhud. And I'm being specific here. Why? Because the next sunnah we're going to mention is another position. And this is called at-tawarruk. At-tawarruk. And this is in the final tashahhud. This is done in the final tashahhud if the salah is more than 2 rak'ahs long. Okay? So, for example, if I am praying Fajr prayer, after the second rak'ah, so no matter what salah I am praying, after the second rak'ah, this is the position that I should do. If the salah is longer than 2 rak'ahs, like Maghrib is 3 rak'ahs, like Isha is 4 rak'ahs, in the final tashahhud, I should sit like this, at-tawarruk. And I tried to find a clear picture, and I don't know, for some reason, I couldn't find a clear picture of this. But basically, the hadith mentions, وَإِذَا جَلَسَ فِي الرَّكْعَةِ الْآخِرَةِ, in the final tashahhud, قَدَّمَ رِجْلَهُ الْيُسْرَى وَنَصَبَ الْأُخْرَى وَقَعَدَ عَلَى مَقْعَدَتِهِ. Okay? So he's sitting on his like left butt, basically. Okay? His work. That is why it's called at-tawarruk. He's sitting on his work, which is like basically his butt. Okay? So he's sitting on the left side. So you're going to be slanted a little bit. And again, the first few times you do it, it's like a little bit uncomfortable. And I will demonstrate how you do this actually next week, inshallah. But basically, your right foot is still propped up, but this time the left foot, you're not sitting on it. It's you pop it up in front of your right foot. Okay? And I see some people giving me some very confused looks. This is the position that is called at-tawarruk. This is the sunnah of how a person should sit down in their final tashahhud if there are more than 2 rak'ahs in the salah. Okay? So for Fajr prayer, I sit with al-iftirash. But for Isha, in the final tashahhud, I sit with tawarruk. Make sense? Okay? So I know, okay, in terms of like, maybe some of you are concerned, like how do we actually do this? I can either demonstrate it to you after the class or just wait till next week, inshallah, and I will demonstrate this to you, a live demo of how you actually sit down like this. Of the sunnah of prayers, okay, of the sunnah of salah, is to point with your finger when you are reciting your tashahhud, and even also in your final tashahhud, and looking at your finger. This is the sunnah, okay? So, and I see a lot of people do some very strange things during this time, okay? Sometimes you find someone who is moving their finger up and down, up and down, up and down, and sometimes you find someone who just puts their finger up and then they move it down, and some guy who's like making circles with their fingers, and some guy who's doing this left and right, not up and down, and you're like, what is all of these things, and what do I do? My dad does something, my mom does something, the guy next to me does something, what is everybody doing? Okay? So the sunnah, again, the reason why you see all of these people doing all of these different things is because scholars get into a little bit of a difference out of this, okay? So we're not saying that all of these people are wrong, okay? But if you want the most reliable opinion, which I have researched and found, and this is the opinion this is what I do, and this is what I have been taught as well, there is an authentic hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ where he says, وَوَضَعَ إِبْهَامَهُ عَلَى إِصْبَعِهِ الْوُسْطَى. He placed his thumb, he connected his thumb with his middle finger. So he made like a ring using his thumb and his middle finger, and then he raised his index finger, his forefinger up. Okay? So when you are sitting for tashahhud, don't just put your hand like this and then just do this. Okay? No. Do a ring, okay? So these two fingers, put them down, okay, like this, put them down. Your middle finger and your thumb, put them in a ring, like this, and then raise this finger up. And you're sitting, you're placing your hand on your right thigh, and you're putting it like this. Now, as for, should I move it up only and then put it down? Allahu alam, you can just keep it up the whole time. From at-tahiyyatu lillah until assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So keep it up the entire time. Okay? And another strong opinion as well says that you can move your finger slightly. Okay? Slightly is the key word here. Okay, the hadith says slightly. So not what people do, like they go crazy, like their finger, they're spazzing out. Okay, like relax. Okay, what are you doing with your finger? Like when I say slightly, like this. Okay, you see how my finger is moving very, very slightly, like this. If you want to take that opinion as well, this is also correct. Okay, but what I do usually is I just personally do this, and I keep my finger up from at-tahiyyatu lillah all the way to assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In another hadith, he also tells us, he has another detail, لا يجاوز بصره إشارته. His eyesight does not go beyond the finger, meaning Prophet ﷺ would look at the finger for the whole time during tashahhud. He's not looking in front at the sujood. He's not looking in front of him. He's not looking around. He's not looking at that baby who's running around doing laps around the masjid, okay? He's looking at his forefinger, okay? For the rest of the whole, for the entire tashahhud, and then the taslim was done. Okay, makes sense? Of the sunnahs of prayer as well is actually making tashahhud. Oh, sorry, not making tashahhud. Making dua after the tashahhud and before the taslim. So some people, they wonder, okay, I finished maybe, I'm praying Maghrib. And I said, At-tahiyatu lillah, all the way to the end, and I said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Okay, what do I do now? And the Imam is still not getting up. And I'm just waiting quietly. This is an opportunity for you to make dua. And in another hadith, it tells us that for the final tashahhud, after you finish Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad, all the way to fi amin innaka hamidun majid, this time, this gap of time between saying innaka hamidun majid until assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, this is a time where dua is accepted. So take advantage of this time. Whether you are praying by yourself or whether the Imam is taking his time to give salam or to say Allahu Akbar and get up for the third rak'ah, use this time to make dua. Don't just stay quiet and don't just waste this time. And the last sunnah of prayer which we will mention is doing the second taslim and also turning your head right and left. So two things here. First of all, we mentioned in the rukun, in the arkan of as-salah, taslim is one of the rukun, it's one of the pillars. You have to do salam in order to exit your salah. But the question here is, do I have to move my head right and left? And the answer is, this is a sunnah. This is a sunnah. But Prophet Muhammad would always sunnah. And the Sahabi here, he says in the hadith, that I used to see Prophet Muhammad saying the taslim on his right, on his left, until I would see the whiteness of his cheek. Meaning, he's not just looking like some people do, like they're just doing a quick salam, they just look this. No, he would turn the whole way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, such that he's saying, when I am sitting behind him, I can see his entire cheek. Okay? So he's moving his head the entire way. Okay? So turning the head, that's number one. And the second taslim is also a sunnah. Meaning, if a person says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then he just gets up, his salah is completely valid. Okay? His salah is completely valid if he only does one taslim. The second taslim is a sunnah. And this is why you will see, I don't know if you guys have visited Mecca or Medina, when they pray janazah there, right? Versus when they pray here in the Southwest Masjid, for those of us who have prayed janazah before, or even in any masjid here in the West, you will find that when the Imam finishes the last takbirah, he will say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You say two taslim, and he will say salam to the right and the left. If you go to the haram in Mecca and Medina, they will only say one salam. They will only say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then usually the person who comes there for the first time is so confused, like, why is everybody just moving around and getting up? What? He didn't say the second salam. Well, the answer is because the second salam is a sunnah. Okay? So technically, if a person is just doing tashahhud and he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and he didn't even look right or left, and he didn't even give the second taslim, his salah is valid, but he did not follow the sunnah. Okay? So these are all of the sunnahs. So we've covered a lot of things in salah. We've covered all of the arkan. We've covered all of the wajibat. We've covered all of the sunnahs. We've covered all of the conditions. We've covered a lot of things in salah so far. And I know this is just like a dumpster of information being thrown at you. So I hope you guys are reviewing this stuff. Maybe you're going back to the recordings and you're just reviewing them again, or reviewing your notes and applying them. The best way to learn something is honestly to go and apply it. And applying them in your salahs, and that way your salah is closer to following the sunnah. So now I'll take some questions. Yes, in the back. Doing the entire prayer is a sunnah? Okay, but the Quran came revealed upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to clarify what the Quran is commanding you to do. So the ordering of praying is in the Quran. You have to do salah. In the salat kanat al mu'min kitaban mawquta. There are so many verses in the Quran, and also the Quran commands you whatever the Prophet does, you have to do. Whatever the Prophet doesn't do, you should leave. So, and this is of course now getting into some more the roots of fiqh. How is fiqh extracted in the first place? Sometimes Prophet Muhammad always did something, okay? And he told the Muslims, you have to do this, okay? And in this case, like salah, like many things as well, which are fard, no scholar in the world will ever tell you that salah is sunnah, that all salahs are sunnahs, okay? Or everything in the salah is sunnah. But sometimes Prophet Muhammad would purposely change things so that he would show people that it is not actually a fard. Something is a sunnah. So for example, we mentioned, for example, in the unit of wudu, right? In the unit of wudu, most of the time he will make wudu by washing his body parts 3 times. But sometimes, very rarely, he would do them once. And other times he would do them twice. Why? He's trying to show them that washing 3 times is not a fard. Okay? Similarly with like everything else. Sometimes you will find a lot of hadith that tell you that Prophet ﷺ did this. But then there's another hadith out there that the fuqaha would look at and they will tell you the Prophet ﷺ, he did not do this in a certain point. Okay? So you have to understand that what I am giving you here, what I am teaching you here, is I'm setting aside all of this complicated stuff and I'm just giving you the end result. I'm just telling you this is the sunnah, this is the farad, this is the wajib. But obviously, if you go and take more advanced fiqh classes, you will get to see how they came to say, okay, like why is saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah fard, but why is turning right and left sunnah? This is what the more advanced fiqh class will come and tell you. But it all comes down to studying different hadith and studying different evidences and seeing that at sometimes Prophet Muhammad did something differently so he could teach us, okay, that a certain thing is sunnah. Make sense? Okay, question. So this is also a matter of difference between scholars, okay? One time I was actually given a short talk about this after Salah one time, and I was saying this, and some guy got very angry. He interrupted me mid-halaqah. He was like, no, this is wrong, you should not be doing this. But anyways, the correct opinion, which most scholars agree upon, is you are allowed to make your dua in whatever language you want, okay? You can make the dua in whatever language you want. I know that this is a set of scholars who have very strict opinion that you can only make it in Arabic during Salah. If you want to follow that opinion, by all means, you can go and follow that opinion. That's the opinion of that guy who interrupted me one time. He was following it. He got like so mad, you don't understand. But inshallah, the majority of the scholars, they tell you that you can make dua in whatever language that you want. Okay? You had a question? Yes? Look at the shoulder. When you're doing the taslim, you're looking at the shoulder. You're not looking at the person next to you. Okay? And also, one of the mistakes that some people sometimes do in taslim, that they just for no reason, like they're looking at assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and then they pause in the middle like this. They look down and they say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is not found anywhere in the Quran or the Sunnah as well. Okay, so it's just assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's it. It's very simple. Okay, questions? Yes. Opening hands too wide when they make sujood. Okay. Yes. Everybody should do that. Both men and women. Any questions? But of course, as long as if you're praying in jama'ah specifically, if you are gonna make the person next to you uncomfortable, then don't do it. Okay, like whether it is making sujood like this, or even sometimes sitting in tawarruk, like sitting in this position, this will actually take a space. And sometimes, like, it gets very irritating when the person next to you is like, he's so tight, and the person next to you just wants to do tawarruk, no matter what. And I've dealt with this so many times, and then like they just kind of squeeze you like a brother. Just yeah, you're so these positions of tawarruk, it should only, and same thing with the sujood and any other position, it should not make that person next to you in the salah feel uncomfortable. Make sense? Any other questions? Please raise your hand up high so I can see you if you're raising your hands. So just like, no other questions? You continue? Okay, I realize we're almost out of time. We'll just quickly cover the seerah, inshallah. There's a few things to cover, inshallah. So last week we were talking about the arrival of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ at Medina, or at Yathrib. It was not yet called Medina, and we mentioned that they all greeted him and whatnot. However, when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq arrived at Yathrib, they actually did not go into Yathrib immediately. Like they didn't go into downtown Yathrib. Okay, so they stayed in a settlement called Quba. Okay, they stayed in a settlement called Quba. And I try to put a map here. Like I don't know how much you guys can see it. You can see in the bottom left corner there's Masjid Quba, and in the middle there's that white structure that's Masjid al-Nabawi. Obviously, this is a modern diagram. That's not the actual diagram from back then. But it goes to show you that this was where he was staying, in the edges of Medina, in the edges of Yathrib. He was not in downtown Yathrib, as you can see. Okay, and so he stayed there for 4 days, and he did not enter actually into Yathrib. Now, why did he do this? Very simple. He was waiting for Ali bin Abi Talib. Remember, going back to the story of the Hijrah, he told Ali bin Abi Talib to stay under the cover, right, and to stay in Mecca while he fled with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Ali bin Abi Talib was given a task, and I mentioned this, I think, back then, right? He was given the task of returning the amanat of the people back to their owners. So the Quraysh, even though a lot of them, they did not like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they disliked him and they used to persecute him, they still acknowledged, subhanAllah, that he was a very trustworthy person. So they would leave with him their expensive properties. But obviously now that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has migrated and he's left, he's not just going to take their properties and run away with them. Okay? So he told Ali bin Abi Talib, you do this job on my behalf, go and return these properties to their rightful owners, and then come and do hijrah. And so Ali bin Abi Talib, he did this, and he took him a few days, and then he caught up with Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in Quba after 4 days. So he stayed for 4 days in the Quba. While he was sitting down for 4 days, we don't know much about what happened there, except that he established the first ever masjid in the history of Islam. And this is a fact that actually many Muslims, they confuse. Sometimes when you ask them what is the first ever masjid that was established in Islam, they will tell you Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. And this is wrong. Before Masjid al-Nabawi was established, there is Masjid Quba that was established in the area of Quba. And it is mentioned that Prophet Muhammad, he put the stones, he helped putting the stones, and the Sahaba came and he helped him. They helped him build this masjid. Now, of course, when we say masjid, don't think of a masjid like Southwest Masjid, okay? Don't think like this, like you go to Masjid Quba and you see this big, magnificent, white, massive structure, okay? A masjid was like probably smaller than this hall that we are sitting in today. Like probably a quarter as big as the hall that we are sitting in today. A very, very small space, okay? Because they don't have a lot of technology and what we had back in the day. So he established the first masjid, and that was the Masjid of Quba. And it is mentioned, I'll take some questions later, inshallah. Ali bin Abi Talib, he arrived to Quba on a Friday. Now, of course, what's special about the Friday? There is the Friday Jum'ah khutbah, right? He has to pray Jum'ah. So when Ali bin Abi Talib arrived, Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Prophet Muhammad that he should now go and enter Yathrib. So while he is walking from Quba into Yathrib, there is a distance that needs to be covered. So it takes a person like an hour, for example, to walk from Quba to downtown Yathrib, you can say. On the way they passed by, it was time for Jum'ah. So they passed by a tribe called Banu Salim ibn Auf. Banu Salim ibn Auf. And so this tribe, they had their small, you can say, quote unquote, masjid on the side, a very small prayer area, you can say. Prophet Muhammad stopped there and he prayed and led the first ever Jum'ah khutbah for himself in Medina. So that's another question that people get wrong. When you ask them, where did Prophet Muhammad pray his first ever khutbah, his first ever Jumu'ah prayer in Medina? Some people will say, oh, Masjid Nabawi. And we say, once again, tell them, false. He prayed in a random masjid that was found in the tribe of Banu Salim ibn Auf. So he prayed the khutbah, and the whole khutbah, by the way, is recorded. I'm not going to go through it right now, but the khutbah is very, very short. The khutbahs, by the way, of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. It's interesting to know this, but they were about 2 or 3 minutes long. compared to the khutbahs that we have today, mashallah, 30, 40 minutes long, right? Now, primarily the reason why a lot of the khatibs today, they take their time in giving khutbahs, they have 30, 40-minute khutbahs, is because a lot of the people, unfortunately, only come once a week to the masjid. So let them at least listen to something beneficial for them in that one time that they come to the masjid. So they give them a lecture in their khutbah. However, the Sahaba, every single day, day and night, they were with Prophet Muhammad. So Jum'ah khutbah was just a quick 2-minute reminder. He reminds them about giving sadaqah. He reminds them about having taqwa of Allah. He reminds them about death. He reminds them about being good and all of these things. And then they make iqamah for the salah. So he prayed his first ever Jum'ah prayer. And then shortly after he arrived in Yathrib, this is the point in time in the Seerah. We don't know the exact point, but this is the point in time, most likely, where Yathrib was now renamed to Al-Madinah. Okay? And we have so many authentic narrations that mention the Prophet ﷺ would refer to Yathrib as Al-Madinah. And he told us, and after he got renamed to Medina, he said to the Muslims, don't call it Yathrib anymore. Okay? Don't call it Yathrib anymore. So today we only say Yathrib because we're teaching like history of the Seerah. But it's called Al-Madinah. And so when as he was entering into Medina, he was, of course, riding his camel. A lot of the tribes, so he's passing, as he is, you can imagine. He's going from Quba to downtown Yathrib, you can say. And as he is traveling on his camel, he's passing next to several different tribes. And every time he passes by a tribe, they take the rope of his camel and they drag it. They're like, come. We want you to stay with us in our tribe. We want to take you in. Come and live in our tribe. And so he tells them, leave my camel alone. Allah Azza wa Jal is taking control of my camel. Leave my camel alone. So they leave it alone. And then he moves on for a little bit, and then another tribe comes in and they take him in another direction. They're like, come, we want you with us. Everybody's excited to have him, right? He's the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? They want to have him and they want him to live with them, right? But he told them, leave my camel alone because Allah Azza wa Jal is now taking control of this camel. Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded this camel to go somewhere. So the camel continues moving on and on until it sat at a certain location and it stopped moving. And it was at this that Prophet Muhammad he understood this location is the location of Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. This is where Al-Masjid al-Nabawi would get built, where this camel basically sat down. And so Prophet Muhammad he asked, who owns this piece of land over here? And so he was told that there are a couple of orphans that own this land. So he basically bought this land off of these two orphans. And there were also a couple of trees in the area. He ordered that the trees be cut down and used to build the masjid, essentially. And while he was waiting for the masjid to be built, it's going to probably take the masjid, several months to be completely built. He asked the Ansar, and I'm using this terminology, Al-Ansar. So what does Al-Ansar mean? This is a terminology that you should all start to become familiar with because I'm going to use it from now on. When we say Al-Muhajirun, when we say Al-Ansar, Al-Muhajirun is referring to the Muslims that went from Mecca to Medina. Okay? They're the people who did the Hijrah. These are Al-Muhajirun. Al-Ansar are the Muslims that converted to Islam in Medina. So they are not originally from Mecca, they are originally from Medina. And they accepted Islam, so we refer to them as Al-Ansar. So the Ansar, he's asking now the Ansar, who amongst you lives closest to this location where the masjid is being built right now? Who amongst you is closest to me? This is the phrasing that he says. And the scholars actually get into a difference. What does he mean here? Does he mean who lives closest in terms of distance? Or does he mean who is closest in terms of lineage, in terms of blood, in terms of family ties? Who is the closest relative to me? And so either way, whether you go that way or whether you go this way, the same name pops up, and that is Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari was a distant relative of Prophet Muhammad from the tribe of Banu Najjar. And so he was probably like a 6th or 7th cousin of Prophet Muhammad or something like this. And he says, I am the one who is closest to you. And so Prophet Muhammad he decided that I am going to stay in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari until the masjid construction is completed. And so what happened in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, we're going to discuss that bi'idhnillah, inshallah, next week. Before that, are there any questions before I actually go and ask you some questions? Yes? I'm sorry, you have to repeat the question again. So when we say masjid of Banu Salim ibn Auf, don't think of a structure. They just have an area where they are praying. Most likely they don't have like a structure built called a masjid. Okay, so they just went into an area and they said, okay, yeah, let's just take this place as a masjid. Like for example, the Prophet Muhammad says in the Hadith, the entire earth is a masjid. Does that mean that the whole earth is a masjid? Like, no, it's just a place where people pray. But it's just that he took that specific location as a masjid, as a place where he prayed his Jumu'ah. But the first physical structure of the masjid was the masjid of Quba. Make sense? Questions? No questions? Okay. How should the arms be when a person is making ruku' or sujood? Yes, in the back. Yep. They should be exactly away from the sides. So away from the sides in sujood, or away in front of you for ruku'. When does a person do iftirash and when does a person do tawarruk? Uh, yes. Very good. So we do iftirash always after the second rak'ah, and we do tawarruk in the final tashahhud if there's a prayer that has more than two rak'ahs. Okay. What is the sunnah for raising the finger during tashahhud? Like what's the way do I do it? What do I do with my hands? Yes. Exactly, like this, and then raise my forefinger for the entire tashahhud, right? A person made only taslim to the right side once, and he did not do it to the left side. Is his prayer valid? Is his prayer valid? Why or why not? Um, Now in the back over there, yes, was going to answer earlier. Sunnah, very good. So the second taslim is a sunnah, along with turning the head right or left. Where did Prophet Muhammad and Abu Bakr Siddiq stay after they arrived in Yathrib? Where did they go? Does anyone else want to give it a shot? Someone who has not answered? Okay, you can go in the front. Quba, in the settlement of Quba. What is the first masjid built in the history of Islam? Mr. Yes, over there, with the blouse. Yeah, you. Yes, you. I don't know who just answered. I was pointing at someone else. But yes, answer, sorry. The Masjid of Quba. Very good. Masjid of Quba. How did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ know where to build Al Masjid al Nabawi? Yes, in the back. So he was on his camel. The camel stopped and sat down at the location where they would build the masjid. Who, uh, whose house did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stay in while waiting for the masjid to finish building? Sir Adam, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. And with that said, we finally reached the end of the lecture. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.